Maybe lock them doors and turn the lights down low.
Mini painting, like most other hobbies, is something that you get better at the more you do. Your painting gets better, your skills hone, and lo and behold, the minis that you once considered great are slightly less so with your new standards, which is honestly a really good thing. It's a great benchmark to see how far you've come, and it can be quite inspiring. But on a similar note, you still want to play with these old minis, and sometimes you want them to look as good as you can, right? So one thing that I don't really see talked about too much is refurbishing your old minis, and I'd like to go over that a little bit today. This box Dreadnought is something that my brother 3D printed off for his Imperial Fists like 6 years ago when we first started in 9th edition, and he never really got past the base coat stage, so that is what I'm going to try to work off of now today. So I'm starting off with a nice gradient using a sponge, which is a fantastic technique to try to fudge some good paint. And well, I'm using a dark orange tone to create some shadows, and then like a greenish yellow to get some highlights in there, which I kind of changed my mind on and wiped off later. Then I'm just going to block out everything that shouldn't be yellow using a nice gray. When it comes to refurbishing your minis, the most common mistake that and I presume a lot of other people are correcting, is just that their base layer of paint is boring. Because you're looking at your minis from across the table, you're not really going to see all your fine details, but what you are going to see is the base layer, the base color of your vehicle or your mini. And if that is boring, if it's flat, and if there's no real definition to it, then there's nothing to really look at. It's just going to be a block of whatever color you're painting. So what you want to do is you want to try to add some sort of gradient, or at least some sort of variation to the surface. So try using a sponge to make a gradient like I did on this Dreadnought, or try using a shade to make the shadows look very deep and recessed, and use dry brushing to make the raised areas look bright or worn or whatever, depending on the color. At the end of the day, it's all about just adding that surface detail. If you're more a fan of making your minis look like they've been through hell and back, then try out some interesting weathering effects or battle damage. However, don't go overboard, because well, weathering is a very less is more kind of art, and you really don't want to make your stuff look like a bowl of mud. So all of this is well and good, but how do you do this without disturbing all the other paint that you put on? Well, I find for using a wash, it's pretty easy. You just use a thin brush and focus it specifically in the recesses that you want to get darker, because, well, you don't always have to slap wash on everywhere. And as for dry brushing, just be careful, but also even if you hit some of the other colors, it can actually be pretty good. It just looks like scratches and wear marks as long as you're using the right color. And as for sponging, use a little bit of sponge and clasp it in the end of some needle nose tweezers, and you should be good. And even if it does get on other colors, well, it looks like chipping, so just, pretend it's intentional and fake it till you make it. If you're interested in me actually demonstrating some of these techniques, well, I've got a crate of old Space Marines and a couple of other minis that are itching for some better paint, so if this video does well, or if someone leaves a comment, then hell, I'll do a demonstration. Another technique that I find very helpful for making your minis look more interesting and, well, better than they were is to pick out key details that are big and, well, visible, and to redo them in your new skill level. For instance, I had a Contemptor Dreadnought that, well, the base paint layer was fine, but I could do better now, obviously. But it had a big ol' honkin' plasma gun on it, which I kinda did like shit when I first did it. But, so I redid it with some actual plasma object source lighting, and well, the finished result was like 10 times better than when I started. So key details like that, or if there's a big Gatling gun that you want to redo with some muzzle burn, something like that. If you want to try some non-metallic metal, if you're at that level, whatever. Just pick out some big details and try your heart out on them and spend like 5 hours making it look as good as you possibly can, and your old mini is definitely going to profit because of it. Or don't do that. Spend 30 minutes, make it good. Make it look just good enough. I mean, old minis are kind of supposed to be low stakes, and spending too much time needing everything to be perfect is kind of what starts making this hobby less fun. This is supposed to be, a good time and a chill time, not necessarily something that you need to stress over. So you know what? Just do what makes you feel good. So these Imperial Fists are actually not originally mine. They were my brother's. He 3D printed them off as his first army in 9th edition, and well, I was talking to him the other day, and he said that he doesn't really care for Imperial Fists anymore. He's kind of he chose them as a knee-jerk reaction, and now he just doesn't like them. He's moved on to Crimson Fists, and, well, I kind of wanted to brush on that and just say, that's okay to do. This hobby is supposed to be fun, and if you're not enjoying an army and you'd much rather something else, well, you can't really succumb to the sunk cost fallacy of sticking to your guns there, so I don't know, go with whatever makes you feel happy, and pick the army that brings you joy, not the army that you first chose. We all make mistakes. Another great non-intrusive way to make your old minis look better is to put on a quick edge highlight. And here I'm just using a light ice yellow, and that seems to work well for Imperial Fists. I'm then going to use some bright red and green to highlight some of the tubes leading up to the sarcophagus in the center of this dreadnought that houses the ancient half-dead marine. As cool as the Redemptor Dreadnought is, I definitely think we lost some of the walking sarcophagusness that these old box dreadnoughts have. I absolutely adore it. And, well, I forget where I saw this, but is it true that the Redemptor Dreadnought, the marine at the center, burns out after 5 years? Because if that's the case, then that's, super fucking lame, especially for what the Dreadnought is supposed to be, these ancient parts of the chapter. Ugh, I hate that. After painting up the Dreadnought's glowing red weak spot, which is its visor, I then move on to grim-darkifying the whole thing using a black wash. And you know what, I'm not gonna lie, I really liked the Dreadnought before it got this black wash. It had this very fun, cartoony gradient about it, but at the same time, I kind of feel like that's, I'd feel disingenuous not making this guy grimdark. He begs for slaughter, and keeping him looking like a, lemon would, I don't know, I feel like I'd be doing him a disservice, but whatever, here we are. I did kind of fuck up the decal on the side a little bit when I was applying the wash. The water kind of got the decal to lift and rip, so I kind of had to get rid of the laurels, and well, this was really sad. It still looked fine, just a little bit messier on that shoulder. But while we're here, it's a really great technique for making your old minis look better? Good cinematic bases. And for example, I'm going to be making a base completely from scratch here. This is a ovular cavalry base. I forget the exact dimensions, but I had it sitting around for a while and I didn't feel like printing off another Dreadnought base, so I'm just going to use it and build it into something cool. So starting off with some cork here, I'm going to cut it up and make some stylish rocks for this guy to stand on. After desecrating some holy IKEA merchandise, I then used some Vallejo texture paste to apply a nice layer of dirt to the entire base. I mentioned using bases to make your old minis look better before, and I actually have plans to redo my entire Space Wolf army to be a bit more cohesive later on, so stay tuned for that. I also used my jar of dollar store rocks to add some further variation to the base. A cool-ass base wouldn't be complete without some barbed wire and the head of a heretic, so I'm picking out some of my friend's old Chaos Space Marine sprues, and I'm going to pick this interesting head with 2 horns off of it. I can't wait to send him a picture and laugh at him about how the traders died. To start with this fun little piece of base scatter, I first need to cut off his neck and kind of flatten the helmet to make it look like it's sunk in deep into the mud. So I'm going to use a sharp pair of side cutters, well it's actually pretty dull, and a hobby knife to do this. After the base is blocked out and left to dry, I hit it with a coat of gray primer. Psych, I meant black primer, and I definitely didn't just see my footage. Forgive me, it's been 6 weeks since I've recorded this, But anyway, after I hit it with my black primer, I then decided to dry brush all the rocks with a cool gray, and then hit the top of the rocks, and as well as all the dirt, with a brown, a dirt color. It looks good. As a bonus, I even paint up this little heretic head a nice rust color, because I intend to chip it and make it look all old and worn. While I was painting up this little helmet a nice green color, which is the paint scheme that my friend paints up his chaos, I had the idea, why not have some nice moss on these rocks here? And so that's what I did. Using a green, I basically just dry brushed some spots with it, and well, looks like moss, and honestly, I think it looks pretty good. Even the bases aren't free from wash hell. I use a nice Agrex Earth shade to make it look a little bit dirtier. After cutting a length of that scale barbed wire, I wrap it around the handle of my hobby blade to create a nice wrap effect. I don't really know how this stuff is deployed, but I'm pretty sure it just comes in big rolls that they kind of unravel. So after doing that, I basically just glue it into place over the foot of my Dreadnought. My super glue decided to do something really funny and just like wouldn't work for a little bit. So after struggling with that, it finally worked, and then I eventually just decided, hey, let's add some grass to this base. I added it on top of the rocks because like I imagine there's a little bit of dirt on there that this grass is clinging to. Also, it looks better this way. Then it was just a matter of gluing on the Dreadnought to the base, and Bob's your uncle. I also used a little bit of rust paint on the barbed wire to make it a little bit less shiny, but other than that, this was the final step. And there we go, now this Dreadnought is ready to blast away this friggin' Terminator here, or any other enemy of the Imperium that may come its way. I fucking love this thing. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in, hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you learned a few things about how to restore your old minis. Anyway, hope to see you in the next one. Bye!